Hello and welcome to the Vanguard of Light. And so the question today is, are you living a magical life? Like, is your life as magical as you would like it? And if it's not, and if it hasn't been, like you've been working at it for a while, there's good and bad news. The bad news is that it's probably not going to change. If you don't change this core thing that's stopping you, it's not going to change and you're going to be stuck. The good news is I do have a tool for you to be able to change it. So, and then also, I guess, I don't know if it's good or bad news, but it's not really your fault. It really comes down to what happened as a young age and how you got wired. And if the creation of a magical life doesn't seem like it's in your cards, the good news, it totally is. It's totally changeable, but you have to, there's something very, very specific that you're gonna have to address and go after it. And I've got an awesome story to kind of bring that to light and kind of bring the knowledge I want to bring forth. And it involves a guy named Jay. So let's just talk about Jay for a second here. And he wanted to build not so much of a ditch, but more of kind of like a pathway, like a lazy river, but a small one. Like, we're talking small, like a little ditch, right? And how many of us remember being a kid? Anybody remember being a kid? Hopefully everyone, hopefully. And remember ever digging in the dirt? And maybe you didn't dig in the dirt, or you saw somebody else digging in the dirt and you had like a stick. A little kid, that's what kids do, a stick. You made a line in the dirt, right? So Jay is doing better than that. He's got more than just a stick. He's like, I'm gonna use a shovel. I wanna build this kind of like this trench, kind of like maybe a lazy river, small scale, and he's gonna use a shovel. However, Jay's not quite up to speed, and he's got like a snow shovel, so it's kind of flat end, it's kind of for moving snow. Doesn't work at all for dirt. It's maybe better than a stick, not gonna work for dirt, right? So Jay soon learns that like, wow, this isn't the correct shovel. It's not gonna work. So he goes and gets more of like a spade kind of shovel with the pointy edge to actually starting to make some progress, right? So he's making some progress, and he's finding out that building this ditch / going to be a lazy river, I mean, it's starting small, and he's finding out that, wow, this is a lot of work, right? And he doesn't have a good technique. He doesn't, so he's thinking like, okay, maybe that's the problem, right? I got a shovel, it's better. I'm gonna just do a little bit of digging, but he quickly finds out that's a lot of work. So he finds out, does a little more research, learns some skills of like some techniques that he could use, and like how maybe soften the ground up a bit with a little bit of water. And like, so now he's starting to make a little bit of progress. But he quickly realizes that still is really slow. Especially like a vision of like, this lazy river. Not like a huge river that you'd have a monster boat on, but like maybe something 2 feet wide. We're not talking massive or intense, but man, just this little kind of ditch is taking a lot of time, and it's a lot of hard work, right? So, and he's kind of got some new skills. He's got some new techniques, and he's softening the ground. He's doing that, but wow, this is a lot of work. So has anybody ever been to one of those kind of like home box stores, like a Home Depot, a Lowe's, basically, a garden store and stuff like that? And sometimes outside they got one of those little like backhoe things, right? So Jay comes across that and is like, oh, wait a second, that could be a game changer. What if I had that tool, right? So he gets that, doesn't know how to use it. However, it's a game changer. I mean, he's digging. Like, he doesn't have much skills with it, but he's digging, and it's going way faster than the shovel, and it's way easier. He's just, navigating some of those levers and stuff like that, still going slow, kind of figuring it out. It's a little different. It's not driving a car, but he's making a lot more progress. Right? He's moving forward. He's starting to see his vision come true of like, wow, I'm starting to kind of get a lazy river, right? And he goes after that. He's making so much progress. But once you start like expanding his goal, expanding his vision, he's starting to see that like it's still not going too fast, right? So he goes back to like, oh, well, maybe I just need some more skills. I don't really know how to use this thing. So he does a little bit of research, gets some skill with this little backhoe thing, right? And it does accelerate his progress. But he quickly is like, it's not this river thing. It's definitely not a big river. He's making a much better trench. It's coming along. That's its purpose. And he's driving on the highway, and then he notices like, sometimes there's road construction. Have anybody seen road construction on the highways? Sometimes more than we'd like. But he sees one of those big backhoes, those big ones with a big scoop and bucket, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, if I had one of those, what could I do with one of those? And he's probably thinking, oh, one, it's probably gonna cost a lot of money, right? That's probably gonna be really expensive. And two, it's probably gonna take a lot of training. But he's like looking, he's like, well, maybe I might be able to kind of make that river. I might be able to get it a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit wider. Obviously, if I had a team of 100 people, we could make something epic. But if I just did it me and I did all that work, got that training, I could probably make a pretty awesome lazy river. And you might be asking, okay, what is this story about? Well, it is likened to doing your own personal development, right? If you do it on your own, like just kind of like, I'm just gonna get better with no training whatsoever, that's kind of like digging with a stick, right? That's like, doesn't really work. Then you go, you read some books, and that's kind of like you got the right shovel, maybe a little bit of water, and you're kind of making some progress. Then if you amp it up, you get some really trained professionals, and then that's kind of like using that backhoe from like the box stores, Home Depot, Lowe's, and with possible, you know, you upgrade to some of the top, right? And then you're getting that big giant backhoe, costs a lot of money, but you're feeling massive progress, right? However, that is really expensive, and that might be one of the struggles of like not having the finances that you want, and it still takes a lot of time, and you have to hire a ton of people, but it's only one of you. Like that's the thing on personal development. You can't like hire, you know, 10 people to go work out for you and then get the results of 10 people working out, right? You got to be part of the process. You got to be, you know, in there, right? But I wanted to like kind of get the analogy, if you have that, you know, you're trying to build that lazy river, or Jay was trying to build that, and it took a lot more work than expected. And this might be what you're experiencing with just the personal development. And you might have some better tools, like, you know, energy work or more powerful energy work when you start making a chip and you're getting the ground. But what if you could have a game changer? I mean, like a game changer, to where instead of having a lazy river, like kind of wanted that lazy river, imagine having the Grand Canyon. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Grand Canyon, if you've seen the Grand Canyon, it is epic. I mean, just if you look at the pictures, it is amazing. Actually being there blows that away. It is truly, I mean, for an energetic spot, it is just pouring with energy, will fill you up really fast. And I have a little trick on like how to take that even deeper, which I'll give at the end of the video, but it's just amazing. Like, so imagine instead of like this little lazy river trench, you had a Grand Canyon, right? And people aren't going to build a Grand Canyon. We don't have enough of those backhoes to build that Grand Canyon. It's like 290 miles long, over a mile deep. It is truly epic. But what if you could have change that was like the Grand Canyon versus that lazy river? And there's a way to do it. And it's actually what's been getting in your way and stopping you. The reverse force of that. And that is your unconscious mind. So your conscious mind, which is kind of like that dig in the ditch and stuff like that, 7 to 9 bits for information per second, right? Versus your unconscious mind is operating at 400,000 bits of information per second. So imagine that much more power of how you could create a Grand Canyon. As a Grand Canyon with analogy of a magnificent life, right? So you could build a Grand Canyon if you could get your unconscious mind on board. You know, if you could do that, you'd have harnessing that level of power to create a Grand Canyon, AKA your magnificent life. But just think, if your unconscious is not on board with you, which means if your magnificent life hasn't shown up and you're kind of fighting to make it happen, and it seems like you take one step forward, 3 back, or 1 step forward, but then the goal is like, wow, it's really far. That's because your unconscious mind, especially coming in an early age, and there's a whole dynamic that created that. I won't go into it right now, but that's basically, you're seeing the effects of that, to where you've got that force against you. Not so much against you, just wants to keep you where you're at. And it's like, yeah, no, it's not safe to go further, right? But imagine if you had that as your tool to move forward. The power of your unconscious mind. 400,000 bits of information, or bits per second of processing power, of ability. It's actually greater than that, but just like, that's just what's been like measured as that. But it can do, there's just a whole nother levels of stuff that it can do. But just if you had that, imagine that you could build. Imagine the Grand Canyon that you could create. Now, you could spend the next 14 years with probably maybe 12 hours a day, really going after it to start building the programs that could start implementing, getting your unconscious mind in alignment. Or, this is where the magic comes in, you could utilize a workgate. And it's something that I created after like 14 years of spending the 12 hours a day of hammering and finding it. And I didn't know that's what I was doing. This was God guided. I didn't know it was. While I was in the moment, it was pretty tough. It was horrendous, but that's what drove me, because my life was not where I wanted it to be. And I had something that, have you ever felt like there's something blocking you? There's something up against you that, like, you want to do this, this, and this, but it's not like it just falls into place. It's almost like there's this magical force that keeps getting in the way, keeps pivoting, keeps making it not work. Well, that's kind of where I got to and found these things I call death programs, which is basically like there's just these programs in your unconscious mind where your unconscious mind is like, hey, we can't go there. If we go there, it'll be death. And I liken it to, like, if your goal was to make $1 million, who wants to make $1 million and then fall off a cliff? That's no fun. Like, that's your goal. Like, you got whatever goal you want, you just got to jump off a cliff after. No one goes for that. And that's kind of what these death programs in your unconscious mind are like, yeah, I know you want that goal that's past this thing, but hey, guess what? If we get here, we're going to jump off a cliff. Not fun. It's your unconscious mind is protecting you from that. It's like, okay, we're not doing that. So that's the first thing to do, is to have your unconscious mind start working on your unconscious mind to clean all that up. And like I said, you don't have to spend 14 years develop technology. It's called a warp gate that you can install in about 5 minutes. Yeah, it's like energy work on hyperspeed. You kick it off, now your unconscious mind is doing energy work for you for 4 to 12 hours. So, and it's doing it at hyperspeed. It's amazing. You can start working on these foundational pieces where your unconscious is like, I don't feel safe going to whatever goals you're going for. I don't feel safe, so guess what? I'm going to get in the way. And you can start working on that, having your unconscious mind work on that, so it can start making those corrections at hyperspeed and be like, okay, cool. This can be tuned up. This can be changed. And even more awesome is that I have a 5-day challenge that's free, that allows you to install one of these warp gates and actually experience this. Actually experience energy work happening in your unconscious mind at warp speed to where you start feeling change. And one of the best feelings in the world is to start not feeling like you, especially if you're not feeling too good, to where you actually start not feeling like yourself. Not an improvement, you actually feel different. You're not like, oh, I can muscle through that and make it happen. No, you feel like a different person. And that'd be an example of like, okay, I need to make this cold call. I need to go talk to this person. Whatever the thing you have to do, you don't feel like you're gonna do it, it's hard. Maybe you learn the skills and you kind of push yourself. It's always a push to get through it, but you've pushed yourself, you made it happen, or you've just been blocked. To the point where it flips, where it's not difficult anymore. It's not a challenge. It's a breeze. It's just like, oh, yeah, cool, of course I'm gonna go do that. Those moments where you have those changes to where it's something that had stopped you and then it changes to like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, I just do that. It's easy. You've seen other people do it and it's, why is it easy for them? It's hard for me. But when you have that change to where it's easy for you when it wasn't, it's such a magical feeling. Oh my gosh, it is so glorious, and it's a game changer because you get a glimpse of like, oh, anything is possible. Anything is possible for me. Like you get those glimpses of, oh my gosh, that's true. It's not like, oh yeah, anything's possible for me, but it doesn't show up that way, where you feel like you actually know it is possible because you've experienced, this is where I'm stuck. And then it pivots to, wait, I don't have that anymore. So it's such a magical experience. And that's what these warp gates undo. They undo those deep down stuff that like kind of always block you, kind of like make you feel like you. Like, that kind of reminder of like, oh, it's that way. Oh, I feel that, right? I can push through it, but oh, I feel that. But when that lifts to where you're no longer pushing through, that feeling, I mean, imagine what that would be like. Imagine not having that person that you don't like waking up to, not there anymore. And how much easier it is to move forward. It's not like life doesn't have its challenges, but not having that guy riding your back, that lady right there saying the negative stuff to you. I mean, imagine what life would be like that way, to where you start moving forward in that way. So it's not like you just, because the further you climb, the more grit you got to have, the more you got to push through, the more you're pushing against stuff. Imagine if that wasn't the case. Imagine if you got to flip the script to where all of a sudden it's just a joyous expression. And not like, oh, that's what it should be and you're not going to have it, to where you actually have it, to where when you start unlocking these pieces, because you don't know what they are, your unconscious mind is hiding them from you. I've got them mapped out, so that's what we'll target with these warp gates of, let's target this. So because your unconscious can be like, no, we're not looking here, don't look here. But once we start targeting them and it starts freeing up, that's when you start, without your effort, because they're all running in your unconscious mind, you'll kick them off in 5 minutes and it's going to run for the next 4 to 12 hours and you just start changing. And you start opening up to the magic of you, because you're like, wait, who's doing this? You're doing it. You know, with the help of a warp gate, but you're doing it. You're doing the work. It's not like somebody else is coming in and magically doing it on you, and then when they leave, it's like, oh, I got to hire them again to help this change. No, you're starting to create that change. And you're going to start pulling back the magic of you, because you know there's something magic inside you. That's why you're here. You know there's some magic for you that the world needs. And that's why I made this, to help you unlock, because we need your gifts. And when you start cracking them open, and you start getting closer to how awesome you really are, because I get if you're not feeling that right now. I totally get it. Been through it for 48 plus years. But it's unlocking. For me, it's like, oh my gosh, things are getting so magical. And I barely scratched the surface of what's possible. But these unlock it. These warp gates unlock that for you, to where you get to start experiencing that. You get experience of, wait, there's more going on, and there's more going on to me. And you get to experience that. So I invite you, come join the challenge. Just experience it in 5 days, in less than 5 days. On the day one, you're going to install the warp gate. Like I said, it takes 5 minutes. It takes more time to explain it than to install it and run it. But once you run it, you start feeling it. You start feeling it happen. And you're only feeling a fraction of what it's doing, because it's designed that way, because it'd freak you out if you felt it all. But it's designed to feel just a fraction of it. But you'll still feel it really intense. You'll be like, whoa, you might want to slow it down. It's set up, you can slow it down. If it's a little, whoa, it's a little intense, slow it down a bit. It's okay. Your unconscious mind is running it in the background. It's okay if you slow it down. So instead of it taking 12 hours, it takes 16. That's okay. It takes 24. That's okay. It's enough time for you to kick it off the next day. It's all good. It's fine. It doesn't have to be traumatic. We don't want it to be traumatic, but it's doing deep, extreme energy work. So I want you to experience that, because, oh man, when you get that feeling that you're not the you, oh, it's so good. It is, I can remember when I put all these warp gates together, right? And this is, like I'm saying, it's like 14 years of going hardcore on it. Is when I combined this unconscious mind program with doing energy work, which I spent all this time learning, and I combined them together, and I got my unconscious mind to start doing it. And I was making, before there were warp gates, there was these programs, and eventually I put them together, so they stacked together as a real powerful warp gate. But when I started getting to that point, that like critical mass, when it started correcting my unconscious mind, my dreams radically changed. They used to be just horrific. Most people would call them a nightmare. I was just used to it, because I was always life. There's always somebody trying to kill me and stab me and cut me and chop me up, and that ended. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. Something is happening. My unconscious mind is changing. And then I also started feeling different. It wasn't that I was getting better. I was feeling like a different person. I was like, wait a second. This ain't the same me. That boogeyman that was always there in the morning, it's like, where is he? He's not there. And it just opened so much more to take on. It wasn't like, oh, I got to pump myself up to get by that person. That's always there. He wasn't there anymore. He was being changed. That boogeyman was changing. And that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm not the same person. Not I'm a better person of the old, crappy, polished the turd, a little bit better person. Is like, no, I'm not the same person. If I could change that, oh my gosh, what could I change? There's nothing that can stop me now. You get that emotion, and then you'll bump up to other stuff. It's not like life gets all easy and stuff like that. It's just rosy, but it's a whole pivot to where you get that experience of like, wow, if I can let that go, what's the next thing I can find? Where you go, move forward, and you start, and then maybe another one of those shows up. I'm like, oh, that's hard to do. But it's not like, oh, that's hard to do, I'm never gonna be able to do it, and I'm gonna have to work really hard and feel terrible. It's like, no, I'll just keep working my tools, and eventually that one's gonna pop. And then that's no longer gonna be an issue. And I swear, every time that happens, it's such a glorious feeling. It's so enthusiastic. It fires you up so much, because it's like that part that was so you, that you didn't like, all of a sudden is like, pop. You no longer have that, I can't do that. That part I don't like, it's still there. It's, ooh, that smuck. It's gone. You no longer function that way. And you're just like, wow, if I can let that go, there's nothing I can't let go. There's nothing I won't be able to figure out or do. It's such a good feeling. So I want you to start experiencing that. I want you to have those moments. I want you to open up to the magic of you. And it's not like, oh, you're supposed to do it and you feel bad because you can't. I went through that, a whole bunch of that. Beat myself up, I have all these talents, but I can't put it all together. And you have that feeling of like, I can do this, I can do that, but man, it all comes crashing down and explodes, and he shows up and crashes down. I want you to get out of that loop, and I want you to start really experiencing the magic of you, because the magic of you is there for sure. It's not that these warp gates are so amazing. They are amazing, but you're more amazing. And just by you running them and start opening up you, because the technology that you're going to bring back, the magic that you got inside is going to be even better. So you can apply this. It doesn't take long to learn, like 5 minutes to install, and then you run them 4 to 12 hours of energy work. You start feeling change. You start feeling like you're a different person. So go check out the challenge. I know I've been talking forever. It takes less time to install than that you heard me talking, and have that Grand Canyon life. You know, your unconscious is creating a Grand Canyon for your benefit versus you trying to, like, you know, do it yourself, like digging that ditch. You know, like Jay was trying to do. Even if you improve, you get a better tool, you know, and you get a little bit of help, you're still trying to dig a ditch when you could have the Grand Canyon, you know, done for you. I mean, you came in with the most amazing, powerful tools given to you by Source. Let's start using those. So I invite you, come join me at the 5-day challenge. You'll start feeling it on day 1. And until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night.